Dobar dan. Američki senatori Šahin i Velč borave u zvaničnoj posjeti Crnoj Gori gdje se između ostalog sastaju sa našim najvišim crnogorskim zvaničnicima o razlozima njihove posjete, ali i o nekim unutar političkim situacijama u Crnoj Gori kao i u situaciji u regionu i na međunarodnoj sceni. Razgovaramo sa pomenutim senatorima. Senator Šahin, Senator Velč, thank you for your time and welcome to MENA News Agency studio.
Thank you.
Nice to be with you.
I would like to start with you, Senator Šahin. Your visit matches a, well, I will say, really delicate period in our history, but when I think about it, we had a few of them. We are in the middle of forming of our new government. There is a regional crisis in Serbia and Kosovo. Unfortunately, 2 wars are ongoing. I assume you had a lot of subjects to discuss with your interlocutors. What were the main and whom have you met during your stay?
Well, this is our second day in the region. We started in North Macedonia, and this morning we were in Kosovo. We wanted to express our concerns about what happened on September 24th on the border between Serbia and Kosovo, and the importance of this opportunity to look at what's happening and to see if the leaders can go back to the table and find some long-term solution that is acceptable to both Kosovo and Serbia. So we wanted to be there for that, and now we're here. This is my first visit to Montenegro, and we're going on to Bosnia-Herzegovina tomorrow. So it is an opportunity for us to meet with leaders here to talk about the challenges. Montenegro is a huge success story. It's a NATO partner of the United States. We have a great relationship. We had a chance to visit the Ministry of Defense and to hear about some of the NATO mission that's going on that's been very important, not just to the United States, but also to Montenegro. And had a lovely lunch with President Milanovic. And he was a wonderful host and had a chance to talk about the challenges facing the country and his vision for continued movement on Montenegro's part towards joining the EU and the opportunities there and some of the challenges. And he encouraged us to do what we could to be helpful in moving that forward. So it was a great opportunity to. This evening we're going to have a meeting with a number of women entrepreneurs to talk about what we might do to support some of those efforts. We both come from states where small businesses are very important, and so whatever we can do to support small businesses is important.
Yeah, you are actually a former small business owner, if
Yes.
I'm correctly informed. But Senator Welch, what was, according to you, the most important message you brought to Mr. Milatovic?
Actually, I think the most important message is the one that I've received from the people in Montenegro. I mean, this is a vibrant society, it's a vibrant democracy, and it's extraordinary to think about the vote and the decision people made here that they want the rule of law, they want their valued NATO partner, and they'd like to be part of the EU with the economic opportunities that comes with that. And I'm just very excited to be around people who are looking about creating a good future for themselves and for their kids. It's my first time here, and I want to come back.
Well, you mentioned votes. The funny thing is that we had our elections not so long ago. We're in the middle of forming new government, and according to the latest unofficial information we do have, one political coalition, I'm speaking about for the future of Montenegro, which is, well, pretty close to the official Serbia, is going to be part of new governments. What are your thoughts about this? This is a question for both of you.
Well, my thoughts are that this is obviously the decision of the people of Montenegro. And what I understand in polling is that 80% of people would like to be part of the EU, and we certainly hope that happens. So my hope is that you'd get a final government formation that was going to be successful in achieving the goal of the people they represent. And that would suggest to me that getting partners that are committed to the EU are going to continue to be a strong NATO ally would be the best course. But getting from here to there is the work of politics, and that's going to be the responsibility of the folks trying to put the coalition together. But we can say that it's a thrill for us that the voters in Montenegro are aligned with the values we share, and we want to be real partners with them as much as possible.
Yes, they indeed are aligned with those values, but Senator Šahin, do you believe that by entering this coalition we will have a government which will, well, provide those goals?
Well, again, I think that's up to the people of Montenegro, but I have reservations about any political party that has that doesn't support the aspirations of the people of this country, the aspirations towards continued membership in NATO, towards support for Ukraine, and we very much appreciate the support that Montenegro has given Ukraine, towards continued EU, looking to join the EU. All of those, as I understand, are aspirations that about 80% of the population here support. And so it would be unfortunate to have a representation on the part of the government that doesn't support those values.
And recognizing Kosovo. I mean, the history of the Balkans is hard. And what you're seeing is young people, the voters, they want unity. They see that peace is their friend. It's going to allow for greater opportunities for their kids in their future. So, you know, we have our own challenges in our own government, so we're not here to be preaching to anybody. But when you get people who want to pull in the same direction, you usually get there faster.
Yes, yes, and I would like to see that more. But you know, one of the leaders of that coalition, and I'm speaking about Milan Knežević, said recently, I will quote him, that some high-ranked US official, administration US official, told that they have no problem for coalition for the future of Montenegro to be a part of new government. In your opinion, has the US administration showed united attitude towards this?
Yes, and I think we're very proud to have our ambassador and all of our embassy officials here, and they represent the foreign policy positions of the United States. And I think they have been very clear about what they believe the message is coming from Washington.
Yeah, and keep in mind, you have a member of the Foreign Relations Committee who's been on it many years, a member of the Armed Services Committee, our leader in the Senate on matters involving the Balkans. And when she says we speak with one voice, you can go to the bank with that.
Yes, and when Ambassador Reinke, whom you mentioned, told her attitude, actually the attitude of the US administration, the Coalition for Future of Montenegro accused US for interference in the international affair of Montenegro. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, my view is disagreeing isn't interfering. Stating your opinion is not interfering. I mean, we acknowledge the final decision is up to the people of Montenegro. The voters, what they say goes. The government, what it does goes. But if asked our opinion, we'd be glad to share it.
And we have shared values with the United States and Montenegro. As NATO allies, we have shared values in support of rule of law, human rights, a multi-ethnic society. And it's important, I think, for us to continue to talk about those values and why we think that's important, not just for us in the United States, but for you in Montenegro and for countries across the Western Balkans.
One of those values, we will agree on this, is gender equality. You are you are the first woman in the US who's been a senator and a governor in the US, and I would like you to comment on the fact that during the negotiations for the new government, we had our public saw no woman on the negotiating table. How do you see that?
Well, I think it's really important to have women at the table, obviously. Women make up 50% of our population. Actually, it's a little over 50% worldwide. And we know that women's experiences are different than men's. They're not any better, they're not any worse, but they are different. And it's whether it's the boardroom, whether it's a political campaign or whether it's the formation of a government, because we need to bring those experiences, those attitudes to the table as part of the conversation.
Yeah, and we have a ways to go. You know, in the Senate, we have 25% of the 100 are women, and in our Congress, where we have 435 members, it's like almost 29%. So we've got a ways to go.
Yeah,
But
it's not enough yet.
Not enough.
But so we have to continue to make progress. And I will tell you that when we had lunch with President Milanovic, that one of the things I commented to him on was how nice it was to see so many women there as advisors
That's
to
right.
him, and how important that is.
After we, well, let's say, set the values, after we form the new government, what should be, according to your opinion, the most important, the first task they should do?
I always think that the first responsibility of government is safety and security, and clearly making sure that people feel safe and secure is critical. That's why membership in NATO has been so important, because NATO provides that security. As we've seen in Ukraine, what happens when you have a country like Russia that invaded Ukraine unprovoked. Ukraine didn't have that umbrella of security as part of NATO. So that's very important.
The thing you mentioned about security leads me to unfortunate situation in our region. The crisis between Serbia and Kosovo is still ongoing. We recently had 4 casualties, 1 police officer from Kosovo and 3 attackers of Serbian ethnicity were killed. What are your thoughts on this situation in general?
Well, first of all, it's the loss of life and the use of violence as a political means of persuasion. There's no place for violence. And we're heartbroken at the loss of life of a police officer, and others were injured. So the folks who did this, we hope will be brought to account. Justice has to be served. But especially in the Balkans, I mean, you don't need us here to revisit what has happened when violence is used as a way of trying to get your point of view accepted. So we would hope that there'd be a renunciation of violence, there'd be more effort at reconciliation and discussion of resolving very, very difficult issues, and we'd hope there'd be an ability for accountability.
Yeah, one of the first requirements of rule of law is that people are held accountable for their actions, and so there needs to be accountability for who was responsible for the incursion and the loss of life on the 24th. I hope that Serbia will cooperate in that effort and that Kosovo will follow the rule of law. But long term, we need to look at how we can provide stability long term. And the KFOR mission there is very important to help secure the border. But the real answer to stability there is for the leaders of Serbia and Kosovo to come to the table to find a peaceful settlement to their differences. And as Senator Welch pointed out, right now we're seeing the horrible consequences of war in Ukraine, of war in the Middle East. You all know that very personally in this region, what has happened as the result of war. And we can't let that kind of conflict happen again in this region. It's very important for us to support the movement toward democracy, whether it's in Montenegro or North Macedonia or Bosnia-Herzegovina, and to try and provide the assistance that people need, because as you're seeing here, 80% of the people of this country want to move towards democracy. They want to move towards joining the EU, and they like being part of NATO, having that security. So I think it's important for us to do everything we can to ensure that we address those concerns before they become open conflict again.
How did Serbia, in your opinion, address this concern if we consider the fact that Mr. Milan Radojičić, who is a close associate to President Aleksandar Vučić, admitted that he was part of the organization? Still, we saw no results. He is still free man.
That's the point we're making about accountability. We don't see it yet.
Yeah.
So to be continued, but we think that the rule of law requires accountability. And also, if you're going to have the resolution of age-old challenges without violence, then you're going to be able to provide opportunities for citizens and their kids. You know, the violence just is it's the last desperate resort of people who aren't willing to sit down. So we think, and we think it's dangerous. You've seen it. So let's use the political process like you've done in Montenegro to have an opportunity to create real change that makes a difference for everyday people.
And hopefully Serbia has a process that has not ended yet that is going to hold accountable somebody who's admitted he was responsible for the violence that happened in Kosovo.
And according to you, to recap this entire situation, what do you expect from Serbia, and what do you, of course, expect from Kosovo? How far are we from the solution of this entire problem?
Well, you know, I was really optimistic earlier this year when there seemed to be real progress on the part of both Serbia and Kosovo to deal with some of the outstanding issues in the region. And we've seen that progress stall. And now I think it's time there's attention from the EU, from the United States, to encourage both parties to come back to the table to deal with some very specific grievances that still exist on both sides. And we need to do everything we can to encourage the leaders of both countries to get this resolved, because violence and conflict only leads to greater violence, only leads to more families being hurt, and that's not in anyone's interest.
And it's a threat for it to
for the whole region.
Yes, the entire region. I assume.
Absolutely.
I would like us to return a little bit to Montenegro, but yet we're still in the domain of the entire Western Balkans. Senator Šahin, in August, a group of US senators introduced a new bipartisan legislation. It's called Western Balkans Democracy and Prosperity Act. So I'm curious, how are the procedures going? When can we expect it to be adopted?
Well, it's bipartisan legislation, which we're very excited about. It's got a good group of bipartisan sponsors. We're still working on it. And we believe it has a real chance to come to the floor. It does four things, basically. First of all, it encourages more trade and commerce between the United States and the Western Balkans, which contributes to a stronger economy. So we think that's really important. It would also provide technical assistance to deal with corruption. One of the issues that has been in too many places in the Western Balkans and has been a frustration for the citizens has been corruption. So to provide some real assistance for countries in addressing that, we think is important. It would codify the sanctions that are right now being done by executive order against some of the people in the region who have been corrupt, who have been responsible for criminal activities. Again, we think that's important to show people that there is accountability for people who don't follow rule of law, who misbehave, who take advantage of people in their countries. So we think that's very important to codify into sanctions, those sanctions. And then finally, it would focus on something called the BOLD program, which is a program that helps encourage young leaders. And the future of this region, just like the future of the United States, is with young people. And we need to do everything we can to ensure that young people know what their future is, that they're not leaving the region to go someplace else because they don't think they've got opportunities here. So it's designed to try and encourage that program to continue and to expand, to keep young people in the region.
Yep. Senator Velč, Senator Šahin explained us quite good what does this legislation bring. So what would be, according to your opinion, the most important benefits of this legislation?
Well, what we're trying to say is that we in the United States want to be as supportive as we possibly can to the peacemakers and the folks in the region who are looking to the future, not looking at the grievance from the past. But the hard work, we understand this, has to be done right here. This is where the future will be established. We can help. And you've got Senator Šahin, our leader on the Balkans, who's totally committed, very persuasive, twist our arms to make sure that each one of us will do everything we can to be helpful. But at the end of the day, it's the people in Montenegro who have to make these decisions and do the day-to-day hard work. But we're with you, and we want to help any way we can.
Hopefully our decision makers will hear you. Thank you very much for your time, and thank you for being guests of MENA News Agency.
Thank you.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Za agenciju MENA govorili američki senatori Šahin i Peter Velč. Ovaj i ostale video sadržaje možete pogledati na našem YouTube kanalu. Ja vas pozivam da najnovije vijesti iz Crne Gore, ali i svijeta pratite na našem sajtu mena.news. Do gledanja.